Thank you so much, Abhinav, Prakash, and Abhijit, Iyer-Mitra, for joining me today on another episode of Kaleidoscope, where we discuss, or rather have conversations about a lot of the things that are making the news and some that deserve to be in the news but don't quite make it to the news or to mainstream media as it is. In particular, this week, we saw in Parliament uh, an MP raised the issue of the Oxford Student Union president having to give up her post, who happened to be an Indian girl. And it was a first, really, the first time an Indian girl had reached that position. But because of cyberbullying, by no one less than a faculty member, resulted in her giving up her position, hardly fought and won position, and returning to India. Abhinav has also spoken to the young lady, and we'll dive a little bit into that conversation. And the fact that the EAM has said that he's going to take the government has taken rather serious cognizance of this, which is refreshing to hear. And the fact that it reached Parliament is also a good thing, because I think the UK has been in the news for racism, most recently with Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah, which I'm sure we've all watched. And this just brings that conversation to the fore. And on the other hand, of course, we have the Rutgers issue, which is with the professor, Audrey Truschke. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. She's usually referred to as AT, even by other academics I've read in some papers. And Abhijit has been following that very closely and commenting on it. Very recently, I read an article which Abhijit, you posted as well today, about in the Hindu, wherein the left now seems to be taking exception to some of the things that she's saying, which is incredible, because they played a huge role in platforming her when she came out with this whole Aurangzeb being the benevolent monarch, or whatever you want to call it. So that's really where it's at. But what happened at Rutgers is that the Hindu Students Association decided to approach the faculty and the administration of the college and speak about the environment in the college, which was actually being quite vitiated by this kind of not only academic study, so to speak, but also a lot of politicizing, protesting, and of course, using the whole majoritarian narrative to corner students in the university. So very kind of disturbing trends that are being seen abroad in two very premier educational institutes. Of course, as we know, India is the second largest, the second largest number of students go to the UK and US from India. The first is, of course, Chinese students. We follow after them, closely after them, I might add. And the UK and the US are top destinations for this. I myself studied in the US, and at that time, I remember that there was curiosity about someone from India, but not this level of animosity. So we've, moved, the needle has moved from curiosity to animosity, and it seems like it has been quite a concentrated campaign. So I'm very grateful for the two of you for joining me. I know that there are a lot of our viewers who want to ask you questions as well. So I'm going to keep dipping back into my social media and seeing what questions come in. But let's get a start. Abhinav, talk to me about this young lady. You had the opportunity to talk with her earlier.
Yes, thank you, Advaita, for inviting me. See, what is happening in the Western universities, whether in the UK or in the US or in the Canada, is the outcome of a long-term process which started 20, 15 years back, something like that, which is basically a new kind of scholarship which start emerging, which basically denies the existence of India as a country. So if you have noticed that in the academic publication, in the books and all, they don't use the word India anymore. They always use the word South Asia. The underlying argument is that India is an oppressive, illegitimate, artificial entity which is oppressing the different nationalities in the subcontinent. So by calling people Indian, you are oppressing them. So India itself has been turned into an oppressive identity in the academic discourse. That's number one. Number two, Hinduism has been deemed as an illegitimate religion, a false religion. We have read the articles recently written by and I think assistant professor of philosophy in the IIT Delhi. She also said that how upper caste invented Hinduism. The argument is that there is no such thing as Hinduism and Hindus do not exist. It's a fake religion. They worship false god, and the entire construct is simply to oppress the people. Now that has been happening. These ideas have been percolating in the campuses, in the academic discourse, and then in the media, and then in the policy making for long, and we have done nothing about it. What we're seeing today is the outcome of that poisonous academic discourse. Now, this girl who became the first Indian citizen to become the president of the Oxford University, she's not just the first Indian woman, she's the first Indian citizen as well. She was hounded for some post she made when she was a teenager, several years back, when she was not
I
even in
think
the
she was
college.
15 or something, if I read that correctly. I think she was 15 or 16. I mean, a kid.
Something like that.
Yes.
And see, the cultural sensitivities differ from one place to another. Now India is not a woke culture like the western countries, and
As yet.
what she said that back then, maybe, I mean, she might have seen nothing wrong in that, maybe she was ignorant about it. What is considered to be racism in the west, perhaps that cultural ideas do not apply to India. Like we see in the case of swastika might be a bad symbol in India, and India is an auspicious great symbol which we have in our homes and everywhere you go in India. So the cultural sensitivities differ. Now this girl was hounded for making some posts back in 2000, I see 5 or 6 years back, and the attack she suffered were completely racist. They were completely Hindu-phobic, and she was abused and hounded from her post. Now, people might say that, well, this is simply the woke people taking offense at some trivia or some kind of comment which they disagree with, but I don't think this is the case. I think this was clearly targeted at her, and we've seen the post by that faculty as well, targeting the student,
Yes. Yes.
targeting her family, targeting her community, targeting her faith. And I think that that's a direct outcome of Hinduphobia and also racism against India. So Parliament has only discussed racism, but we should not forget Hinduphobia is the core element out there. Same
Absolutely.
thing is happening in the other university campuses as well.
Abhinav, you're a professor as well. Would you ever participate in something like this? What are the, professional code of conduct? I can't understand how a faculty member can be so actively involved in this sort of student dispute,
Yeah.
wherein he's literally campaigning for this girl to be kicked out.
Yeah, but this is what the people on the left and the so-called liberals do, and they always do that. When I was a student at JNU, I have seen that the left-wing faculty would openly participate in the students' politics. They will hound the people who will not agree to the left-wing ideas. There were lots of censorship in the classes. You could not say Taiwan, for example. You had to say Chinese Taipei in the class. I was told to say Chinese Taipei in the class. So the left always does that. There's nothing new about it, but frankly speaking, most of the people don't do it. I mean, there's something called basic human decency.
Right.
But the remember, most of the people who come from the left, either in media or in academia, they are embedded assets and they behave like one. Even
Hmm.
in the media, you have so many. So why do you think that? I mean, when people are talking about JNU violence a couple of years back, Advaita, but JNU has always been violent. We have
Yeah.
who have studied from JNU, we know the left wing parties, especially ISA, used to be extremely violent. But
Hmm.
those news will never make to the media because of these embedded journalists in media who are cadre of the Communist Party, and they will never let those news come out. So this is what we're seeing. This is a typical behavior of the left wing, or now this new breed of woke liberals like this
Right.
professor. But I don't think I can never do that, and I don't think majority of the faculty can never do such a thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I found that particularly shocking about this incident was the fact that a faculty member was so actively involved, and there was no usual outrage from the usual suspects, rather, that, isn't this a power imbalance? How can a faculty member who is obviously in a much more powerful position than a student, tenured member, I'm assuming, behave in this manner? Abhijit, you wanted to come in?
Well, look, none of this surprises me. I've seen this kind of double standards by faculty very, very often. Specifically, not just in JNU. I've seen it across India in several universities where, and it was overwhelmingly the left-wing faculty, they would be extraordinarily empowered. I've had friends who used to sit in this lady, Jayati Ghosh's class, and
Mm.
she'd be spewing reams and reams of propaganda. You had to be very careful what you said. You would be marked on ISA or SFI membership, mind you, and there was no checks and balances to it.
Mm.
Now, herein lies the problem. If you tend to go against the zeitgeist, then checks and balances will be applied to you. If you do not, and you go with the crowd, then there is absolutely no checks and balances. You can participate in this. In that sense, it's no different from, say, communist China, where professors who went along with the Red Guards and things like that would actually round up other professors. Right? Now, you want a very clear example of this. Look at Georgetown. Last week, they they sacked a professor from the law school for merely stating that Black students did not seem to be performing as well in her class as other students. And Georgetown, within hours, put out a statement calling her remarks abhorrent and against the ethos of Georgetown, and kicked her out. Yet, I remind you, 2 years back, Christine Fair, who was at that time an associate professor, said that she would cut off the genitals of conservative students and shove it down their throats. And after, there was no official condemnation, there was just complete silence. She was de-rostered for about 6 months, and then she was promoted to full professor. Now, you tell me, where is, and it's a Brandenburg violation, because in the US, you have something called the Brandenburg principle, which is, it isn't an incitement to violence unless it is a specific threat against a specific target. And here it was a specific threat, cutting off genitals against a specific target, which was the conservative students on campus. And what does Georgetown do? So you see this differing criteria. I've seen this very often. There's nothing new about it. The thing is, we've started talking about it, but it's happened for a very long time. So we then come to Rutgers. Now, Rutgers, very, very curious, because normally they should be sensitive to cultural appropriation, which is basically somebody not from your culture going around interpreting it authoritatively, shoving down all the native interpretations as bigoted or wrong, basically going off on I am white, therefore I know better, right? However, when this white lady, who is the niece of a white preacher, and you can't get more colonial than that stereotype, a white man coming to take the Black native savage out of his or her savagery, a niece of a colonial hangover like that, sorry, the daughter-in-law of a colonial hangover like that, coming and telling us, teaching us about our own religion. And mind you, she's been caught out on several occasions lying.
But she never really, I followed, I don't follow her, but I did follow some of the arguments. She never really responds with any kind of academic response or, theory or research-based response. It's always like, oh, look at this troll and look at that troll and bad boy Hindutva.
So
and,
she plays victim.
She does that. That's her response.
That's always her response. Her response is victimhood. And mind you, it is trash like the JLF people who have platformed her because of this. Okay, and JLF has a very sordid record in this, that every time somebody gets
controversial,
they scream, hounded by trolls, they want them on their platform and they make a celebrity out of them. For example, what is the difference between the lady at Oxford and that other lady, Gurpant?
Gurmehar Kaur?
Oh yeah, Gurmehar Kaur. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what is the difference between Rashmi and this Gurpant lady? Right. They both, in Gurpant's case, she was only trolled on Twitter.
Right.
In Rashmi's case, she had a faculty member attack her.
I find that shocking. Absolutely.
There was, and it really shows you the kind of trashy standards Oxford has. And I don't take any solace in the foreign minister, because mind you, he said we will take it up at an appropriate time. What is an appropriate time? When a lynch mob comes out, outside her house in Oxford, drags her out and burns her on the stake. Remember, this is how the anti-Jewish pogroms started. Like Abhinav brought out this case of erasing identity. It's no longer India, it is South Asia. First, the Indian identity has been whitewashed. Then the religion has been whitewashed as evil. And this is what, the protocols of the elders of Zion and blood libel did.
Mm.
Today, all these, oppression narratives are exactly what the protocols of the elders of Zion and blood libel were. And the next is the hounding out from universities and things like that. And then invariably will follow the actual pogroms, the lynchings and the burnings and things like that.
Mm, mm, mm. No, I mean, I think it's exceedingly depressing and also disturbing that this is happening. In fact, at that point of time, I also tweeted that why doesn't the foreign ministry really look at a rating system, like an advisory for colleges that, display this kind of bias? And it's, because this education sector, it's a business. And so many of these institutes, including like the big Harvards and all of them, they all want to open up in India as well. They're opening up offices, they're conducting surveys of where students like to go, how much money they're spending. I mean, I know for a fact that these surveys are being conducted. So they're looking at India as a business opportunity because of our demographic. And on the other hand, they can treat our students in this Hindu-phobic way, as Abhinav rightly pointed out, and get away with it.
Right. And so this is where the foreign ministry needs to be proactive. But remember, even after all that Twitter and Facebook have done, you have such a feckless government that you only offer guidelines to them. And thank God for the Supreme Court that come in and said, sorry, guidelines won't do. You have to issue laws.
But do you think they're
Right.
caught between a rock and a hard place?
No. This is not a rock and a hard place.
The moment they do something, then they're the oppressive government coming down on
this is their
free speech.
classic need for external validation. It is that inferiority complex driven need for external validation, specifically white validation and left-wing validation. What you need to do with the foreign ministry is very clear. You need to come up with a racism index where, or a student security index where you find that Indian students are being targeted, in which case, if it crosses a certain threshold, you will also deny exit to Indian students having valid visas to go there. All right. You will deny exit permits to their parents to go there.
Mm-hmm.
And in the worst case scenario, you will actually impose taxes. Even if they get in on scholarship, they will have to pay a 500% racism levy or a racism cess in India in order to compensate that their going to these universities is essentially brownwashing the racism and the Hindu phobia of these universities. They have to pay for that 500% of their entire tuition, board and lodge value to the Indian state to counter that.
Mm-hmm.
This needs to be done today.
But isn't that going to then take away from your right to choice? You can you can make a bad choice. You can make the wrong decision. As long as you have the facts. Right now, they're making these decisions without the facts in place.
You can make a wrong decision, yes, but there is a point where a moral imperative comes in. Like for a long time when South Africa was apartheid, your Indian passport, I remember my first 2 Indian passports very clearly stated, not allowed travel to South Africa.
That's right, yeah.
Why? Because it was a nasty apartheid state. There was, freedom of choice was not something given to the people out there. So there was a moral imperative in saying you cannot travel to South Africa, full stop. Your free choice ends where South Africa begins. Mm-hmm. I think this is what you need in terms of Oxford as well, where, and you need to bring in rules saying that you will not accept foreign diplomats posted to the United Kingdom embassy out here who have worked in Oxford or have any kind of association with that particular college.
Okay, that's pretty hard line.
And I'm telling you why it is hard line. I'm telling you why it is hard line, because understand, we are invariably moving towards the same point that the Jews moved towards with the Holocaust.
I made this comment about the whole, the Brahmin and the caste dynamics. And I remember Manish Tiwari also said something similar. And then for the next literally 2 months, I was being cited in columns and, bashed for saying that. But yes, I mean, I think what is happening is this increasingly divisive narrative that is played out in terms of identity and rights is really creating issues between different groups. And we've seen that play out in Indian colleges in the last couple of years. and now this is happening in the West as well. And Indian students, Hindu students, are really facing the brunt of it. Abhinav, is there a way around it? Sorry, Abhijit, you wanted to say something?
Just one last thing. This fellow, this professor in question, who's also an Indian,
Yes.
my real question is, because the target is an Indian and the perpetrator is also an Indian, why hasn't the National Commission for Women taken cognizance of it? Because even if it has happened abroad, this bugger needs to be brought to justice in India because he is an Indian or he's targeted an Indian citizen. There needs to be an extradition request that goes out now to bring him back here and try him under Indian laws.
I don't know if he's an Indian citizen, but he's of Indian origin for sure. That is quite clear. Yeah, he's of Indian origin.
Yeah.
Abhinav, you wanted to come in.
Yes, I kind of agree with Abhijit that we have to take strong steps, because remember this lady in the Cambridge, Premada Gopal, if I'm not wrong, the professor now, when the CAA was passed in India, which basically gives refuge to the minorities from the Islamic State, she put out a tweet basically effectively calling for persecution of Hindus all across the world. And there was no repercussions against her. There was no repercussions by the Indian government. There was no repercussion by our High Commissioner in London. There was nothing done by the Cambridge. Nothing, no condemnation. It was a general call for violence against the Hindus all across the world. And she basically got scot-free. So we need to draw the line. The reason why the Indians and Hindus in particular are taken for granted and people can abuse, do whatever they want to do, because we don't impose a cost on them. Unlike the other communities, right? You can't say anything like this against the Muslims in the Western universities. You will be in big trouble. You can't say anything against the Christians. You can't say anything against the Jews. There will be so many litigations against you that you will be fighting for the rest of your life, So we need to draw a line. We need to strictly say, well, this is not acceptable. And when it comes to these universities like Rutgers and the Audrey Truskey, I think she's doing a great service for India. She's basically discrediting the entire Western scholarship on India, and she's basically exposing it for what nonsense it is for centuries. So if I say even fools have their place in the universe, so she's playing her part perfectly. But the other
why do you think the left is disowning her? For the reason that you're saying, you think she's turned into an unguided missile who's actually
bigoted? Left is far more bigoted and anti-Hindu than she is. So I don't know. Maybe something gone wrong in their business dealings or whatever.
I think it's the same reason the Wire no longer runs Rana Ayub's articles.
Oh, it doesn't. I hadn't noticed that.
It doesn't. If you notice that,
or also Sharjeel Imams.
Or Sharjeel Imams, because they've realized that Rana Ayub is one of those people that it's so easy to take down. Nobody wants to point out to the lie of the 600 odd tapes that she made, which were so shallow on any kind of proof that even Shoma Chaudhary and Tarun Tejpal, who nobody can accuse of being shying violets, didn't want to publish them because they found nothing in there to publish them.
No,
and then if you
publishers
remember,
have sort of said that. Even one or two publishers.
Everybody said that.
Yeah.
And the real thing came when Madhu Trehan pointedly asked her, why don't you give us the tapes, we'll publish them. She says, well, they're copyright of Tehelka. And then Shoma Chaudhary came out and said, they're not copyright of Tehelka, you can publish them. And they've still not been able to publish them. So I think there was a realization that set in that while they're happy to, talk her up, she's become an extremely problematic commodity for the left, because they know when she's taken down, their entire narrative will collapse. Number one. Number two, this is also the same reason, for example, Sharjeel Imam would not be platformed anymore, because he's so transparently bigoted, right? So you can't be as crudely bigoted as Sharjeel Imam, and you can't be as transparently fraudulent as Rana Ayub. You need a sort of sophistication, an intellectual veneer to your fraudulence, or an intellectual veneer to your bigotry. And in Audrey Truskey's case, she's the patina of intellectual sophistication has fallen off, both with her fraudulence and with her bigotry.
I mean, she's in active sort of protests and things like that. I mean, she's very open that she's highly political. She's definitely pursuing a political agenda in India, and she's gone about it without any apology. And in fact, the first note that came from Rutgers, if you recall, where they said that we completely support her or our professors' academic research, etc., 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 didn't at all even bother to address the Hindu issue, which was the crux of what the whole conversation was about, because students in Rutgers were feeling, Hindu students in Rutgers were feeling like they were being targeted and marginalized and all of those things.
Right. And remember, this is the crux of the matter, that Hindu feelings are disposable,
Mm-hmm.
other people's feelings are not. Now, if that isn't the classic definition of racism, what is? Right. Now, I can completely understand affirmative action or reservation, because what you're saying is we need to get everybody up to an equal standard, and we accept that, there has been privilege and we need to equalize it. But when you take this to behavior,
Hmm.
it's like saying that, somebody from one community can kill and the punishment should be less. And the punishment for somebody else committing the same crime from another community should be more. Right? That's not the way things work.
Hmm.
So it's getting into racism, it is getting into lynch mobbery. And mind you, a lot of us who follow technology issues, specifically information age issues, I've been writing about this for the last 10 years now, saying how, the democratization of the internet has been leading us back to the agora phase of the Athenian Republic, which killed Socrates, democratically killed Socrates,
Hmm.
and which used to lead to all kinds of lynch mobs and things like that, because Athens was famous for its lynch mobs at one point of time. That is what we're going back to. We're going back to technological feudalism. We're going back to the feudal ages, where you have certain demagogues that will use identity, ethnicity, any kind of canard to unleash a mob.
Hmm.
Thankfully, it isn't a violent mob, but it is a precursor to a violent mob, just like Antifa and BLM. Initially, it was all in the realm of thought and writing, and then it transitioned into kinetic attacks, which is what you will see against Hindus. It is inevitable.
I mean, it's already happening in Canada, for example, where they've sort of actually reached out and said that I'm sorry that you need to do something to protect us because we're feeling very threatened. It's quite frightening, actually, and that is just snowballing, like you rightly pointed out, and it's a lot faster than any of us would have imagined this.
Mind
Yeah.
you, the attack in Canada was carried out by Jagmeet Singh's brother-in-law, by a serving member of parliament, a noxious, vicious Hindu phobe who has been spewing hatred and bile against Hindus for the last God knows how many years, who supports this government. It was his brother-in-law, his wife's own brother, who comes out and punches that Indian protester in the face in front of the car. I think the video has gone viral. And to date, Jagmeet Singh, who assigns India with collective responsibility for whatever happened, refuses to take responsibility for the actions of his own brother-in-law, born of a venom that he himself has been spreading.
And he's a big politician in Canada. I mean, he's not like a marginal character at all in Canadian politics. He's pretty mainstream.
He's
So,
what he's essentially what Hitler was before the election that brought him to power. He is a two-bit demagogue. He's full of bile and hatred. He, unlike Hitler, though, he masks his bigotry somewhat better. But have you noticed, like Hitler, like the Nazi Party, who loved, very fashionable uniforms and crisp, clean boots. They got their uniforms designed by Hugo Boss, if you remember. Jagmeet Singh is noted for his sartorial style. That stylish beard, the perfectly cut suits. Everything about him goes back to the Nazi Party and its love of sartorial elegance, of aesthetic elegance. And that is what he does. And he is a product of the kind of terrorism Khalistanis have wreaked. Go read the polls that the MacDonald Laurier Institute have done of Sikhs in Canada. no more than 7% maximum believe in Khalistan. The remaining 93% do not. But the problem is the remaining 93% are covered down by these people because these people are the most violent extreme. They will come and beat you up.
I went to Vancouver and I was taken to one area where there's an annual procession, which kind of insults former assassinated Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and photographs and chappals and all of that happened, and a lot of vicious
No,
speeches and things like that.
you can insult
So,
individuals, but you
mhm,
can't insult a whole community because of it.
yeah.
Because that's like saying, for example, you can say, I don't like Netanyahu.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then to piggyback that on to say, I don't like Jews, Jews are killers, Jews are murderers, Jews do blood libel, and Jews do protocols of the elders of Zion, you can't do that. That is racist.
That is what is happening, isn't it? Because a lot of
Exactly right.
people don't like Modi, and they're transferring that hate to a young Indian student or anybody who they can feel is a weaker kind of somebody weaker that they can take on in a more direct way.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. They find the weak point, they go after it because it's a fantastic rallying point for troops. And
Mm,
remember, people like this faculty member out there, they pick on the weak because it is classic bullying tactics to pick on the weak,
mm.
right? And then you can accumulate a mob around the weak. So that is what happens in stage one, which is why the Indian government needs to be forceful in stage one to avoid being forceful in stage two and three. Sadly, this seems to be a chronic Indian foreign policy failure where, Nehru never used to do anything in stage one, stage two, stage three, and then finally the Chinese come and invade you. And
No,
then you've got no option left.
this, when we saw what was happening outside the Indian High Commission, also in London, where windows were smashed and all of that, that happened, I mean, a good, maybe even 12 months ago, or maybe pre-COVID, a little pre-COVID or post. I'm not sure when. But I think it was really indicative of the kind of animosity that exists about Indians.
And mind you, even after that, the High Commissioner to England, she was platforming the JLF people who were going around supporting these same people, who are amplifying the voice of these same people. She was hosting William Dalrymple, who has been propagating their cause for a very long time now. So, what does that tell you? When the Indian government is effectively propagating the same people, promoting the same people, associating with the same people, seeking the validation of the same people who were indirectly responsible for vandalizing your embassy, right? And when you ask the foreign minister, I presume he's more concerned about his board memberships and his university fellowships when he retires. He says we will raise it at the appropriate time. I really
But
want to
that's
know.
that's a little harsh. It's been a while. It's been a while also since these things have even come in Parliament. I mean, I think that's a huge leap.
the,
In the
the
past,
problem
people have
is
not
the
even
problem
made it.
is why did it even have to wait to come to parliament for the foreign minister to make this statement? His job is to look after Indians abroad.
Hmm.
It shouldn't have even come to a question in parliament. The action, and mind you, he's not even saying he's taking action. It comes to parliament, which is already too late, and then he says he will take it up at an appropriate time.
Because Boris Johnson is coming April end also, so he
but
may
but
or
you
may not
wait
know
that
of
long,
that uh,
it loses its value.
immediacy.
Right,
Immediacy.
you need to do
Abhinav,
it then and there now.
yeah. Abhinav, is she back in India, or is she planning to go back to Oxford? Rashmi, what are her plans in the future?
She's back in India. She was in hospital because of high stress and blood pressure. And I don't think she is going back anytime soon because the Oxford is very unsafe for Indian students, in particular Hindu students at the moment. So I think this is a serious issue and the government should take it up.
And do you think they will? Are you, what is your
I'm
sense?
not sure because Indians are known for doing nothing, irrespective of the party in power. And this is the reason you are picked upon, right? So when have you done anything about anything? You can't stand up for yourself, you can't do anything. And See, for the last 100 years there has never been a positive coverage of India and the Hindus in the Western media and the Western academia. What have you done about it? Nothing. So when people say Washington Post is writing about this thing, or some institute in Sweden or America is downgrading India's rating, or New York Times is running propaganda against you. But this is what the Western media has always done for more than a century. Even during the War of Independence, 1857, they were running racist pieces against you.
But
Throughout the freedom struggle, they were running racist pieces against you. Whenever throughout the period when Nehru was in power, India was the evil country. They were never a positive coverage of India. West was so hostile to you when supposedly you were this beacon of secularism and liberalism. So it's classic racism, nothing to do with the BJP in power. It's anti-India sentiment. And what
but there are enough and more high profile Indian voices, even with these latest reports, the Sweden one and the Freedom House one. I know Dr. Shashi Tharoor, for example, is somebody who's, very erudite, well educated. He was tweeting it, he was endorsing it. So we are ourselves endorsing these reports, we are
typical Indian
ourselves
behavior.
validating them. So how much can we blame them when we're so quick to jump up and take note ourselves?
This is what I'm saying. First of all, that's a typical Indian behavior. Why do you think India was ruled by foreigners for centuries? Second point is that this is the outcome that we have not invested anything in Indian academia and in Indian social sciences. In Indian colleges like Delhi University, there are 12 colleges run by the Delhi government. They have not paid salaries for months. You don't even pay salaries to the professors and the staff in your colleges in the uni. And this is DU we are talking about, not some state university.
And we don't even know about it. Like, I mean, I didn't know about
Because
that till you said
the
it.
Aam Aadmi Party, so embedded journalists will never publish those news. They will
Hmm.
never go to those colleges and do interviews. Imagine if it were a central government funded college, then
It
you
would
would
be
have,
all over. Yeah.
yeah, all over. Perhaps in the Washington Post also. So in India, you have not invested anything in academia, nothing in the social sciences. You can't compete. You have to rely on the West. Your social sciences is completely dominated by the West, and I don't think the way out of it is easier, because it should start with the decoupling of the Indian social sciences with the Anglosphere. Mind you, Anglosphere is becoming very dangerous for the democracies and the people around the world because of what is happening in their intellectual realm, what is happening in the university campuses because of this wokeism and
I'm
Islamo-leftism, as
so
McNamara.
glad you brought up volcanism, Abhinav, because I was watching a show and I think it was Nigel Farage who was talking about overthrowing the yoke of woke. And nice play on words, and I totally get it. And he was saying that it's not colleges really in the UK and the Western Hemisphere who where students are woke like this. He's saying it starts not even in secondary school; it starts in primary school. That is the kind of embedding that takes place, where, and I was quite surprised to hear that they're going as far back as like kindergarten, primary school, where these things are seeded, and then by the time you get to college you've already blossomed into this woke. And they were actually speaking in the context of cancel culture and what happened to Piers Morgan post the Meghan Markle meltdown he had, so to speak, where all he said really was that he didn't quite believe her claims. And then there was these calls to take him off the air, and he did part with ITV. But I was surprised that that are we not noticing these things enough?
Not at all, and this is happening in India as well. So this is what I'm saying, that you need to decouple as soon as possible from the Anglosphere, because Anglosphere is moving towards self-destruction, so to speak, and they're threatening the democracies all around the world, whether it's the French or Indians. So we need to do a serious rethink of our deep entanglement with the Anglosphere, especially within the university system and in the social sciences. And remember, they are hounding everyone. So the people, let's say the Dalit students who go from India to these university campuses, they are hounded for being Hindu. They are being abused. They are being pressurized to
So
not.
that's the other thing that's ongoing in academia, right? Those
It's
separate
happening in
Dalit
India as
from
well.
Hindu, and the Dalit is not a Hindu, and that kind of
It's
that's
an
also
old,
kind of ongoing.
it's an old narrative. It's an old
Hmm.
narrative. We never contested it. We have never contested the realm of theories because we thought that Kanchalaya is a lunatic, and we never paid attention to it 20 years back. But now
Hmm.
his theories, his constructs are mainstream in India at the grassroots level. And Kanchalaya is not Kanchalaya, it's MSS Pandayan. I think he was a professor of history in JNU. His work started all those things in India. We have never paid attention. These things started in the 60s and the 70s. And social science theories have real consequences of the ground. This is what Indians don't understand, because according to Indians, social science is all waste of time. You should only study physics, chemistry, and maths.
Become
You
engineer,
can become a
doctor.
tech bully, but you will be ruled by these books in the Western university campuses and the Western countries. So we
Mhm.
need to do something about it, but that starts with serious investment in education in India, in social sciences in India, which unfortunately is not happening, and I don't see any hope of it happening in the future. So this hounding has been going on for a long time. In JNU, I know, and I keep saying this thing, in School of Social Sciences, when elections used to happen, there used to be so many Dalit students from Dalit caste from Bihar, UP, and other parts. They will come and tell you that when we go inside, we vote ABVP, but when we come outside, we stand with SFI.
Oh
Now they
yes, oh
don't.
yes. Colleges, I think it's happening in India. Otherwise, how can Prime Minister
You
Modi
don't
win these
stand with
mandates?
SFI. You don't
There are
abuse.
a lot of silent voters.
You don't abuse Hinduism. You don't say I'm not a Hindu. You're finished career wise. So this is what is happening in India. Forget about what is happening in the Western academia.
No, I mean, wokeism is, of course, in India as well. I mean, cancel culture certainly is. And a lot of times I see the liberal set kind of canceling each other out, mostly
It is
because the rest, the non-left, is already cancelled by them. So they can't
these
really
students are
cancel
targeting
Abhijit or you, or,
faculty.
you know.
The students are targeting faculty in the Indian university and colleges now. Before 2019 election, in the last academic council meeting at JNU, before the
Mhm.
elections were results were declared, the ISA bullies in JNU were protesting outside the building, and the professors who were walking in, who were supposedly not the pro-left professors, the ISA students, these politicians who are platformed as great democratic voice in this country, they were pointing fingers to those professors saying, after the results are declared, I think 27th or something, we will throw you from this building. They were telling that to senior professors in JNU. These ISA, SFI, who are apparently the great hope of Indian democracy, according to our op-ed columnists in Indian Express. This is happening in Indian universities. Forget students canceling each other, the faculty is being hounded. And we don't know when it will become open violence.
I mean, forget op- op- universities in Delhi. They've always been violent. When I was doing my BCom, I was at a very goody two shoes college called Vivekananda College in Madras. It's part of the University of Madras. And what had happened was on election day, there were a bunch of thugs waiting outside. I forget now, I think it was the DMK. I forget who. But I don't even remember their affiliation anymore. Uh, I remember they were waiting outside with knives, right? They were waiting outside the polling booth with knives, demanding to see who the hell you vote for. So, when people tell me that this was somehow the land of milk and honey before the ABVP came on the scene and the BJP came on the scene, I'm sitting back and thinking at college elections in Madras and going, boy, I mean, you're
Mm.
really clueless about what things were. Oh, but they're not clueless. They know exactly what it was. They're just trying to cover it up. It's
Mm.
the way, the Chinese Communist Party killed 7 times the number of Chinese citizens that the Japanese Imperial Army ever did.
Mm.
And yet, people like Enram will claim that the Japanese army was an illegal occupier, whereas the Chinese army was a liberator. Hmm. This is, it's pretty much like saying, if you read Enram's pieces in Frontline on Tibet, she'll come about saying how it was a backward, barren land full of feudalism. And the Chinese came and modernized it and gave the civilizing benefits of modern day civilization to the savage feudal Tibetans. This man is the editor of the Hindu. Okay. And replace the white man with the Chinese man. You tell me how different is Enram from Rudyard Kipling?
This is what I'm saying, Abhijit, embedded journalists in media
Embedded journalists in
who are
media.
active member of the Communist parties and other
No, but
radical.
the Communist Party doesn't take him seriously. That's a different matter. Even by their intellectual standards, he's a bit of a clown, which is why he's never been given a position within the CPI, CPIM, anything like that. So let's leave that aside for a minute. But you go check out Frontline. The Frontline archive should be available on the thing now. Check out everything he's ever written on Tibet. This is the standard line he takes.
I think someone posted something about Arundhati Roy also, saying something very similar to, I can't, it's
There was
missing,
a video clip. Yeah, I remember this.
where she's saying exactly what the BJP is saying right now, but like, I think 10 years ago or something.
Their ability to justify their own crimes and to hurl muck at the other side's non-crimes is just incredible. But this all comes back to this point that Abhinav's friend Rahul Verma at CPR makes, which is the fault lies with the BJP. What they've done is, when they came, na khaunga na khane dunga, they removed a whole set, and the problem is they haven't disempowered. But they de-emphasized the role of the old elite, and they never created a new elite to take over those institutions. So Hinduism is fighting with one hand tied to the back with a intellectual vacuum at the top.
But Abhijit, I think that is also an ideological thing, because as far as the ideology is concerned, it's not person-centric. So that is really what I think also holds back these people from creating the kind of brands in a way that the left does.
So the issue was that the
I disagree there.
The BJP prior to Modi was ideology-centric, it wasn't people-centric. But Modi coming in has made it a person-centric and no longer ideology-centric. That has been the problem.
No, with Modi is also in politics. So that is, the politics has always been person-centric, be it an Indira or a Nehru or a
Not
Modi.
of the BJP, not of the BJP. Congress it has.
No, I disagree, Abhijit. Even under the Vajpayee era, the BJP was pretty much Vajpayee-centric. That's the nature of the politics,
That's politics, that.
But I'm saying something else. It's not just about, as you are saying, ideology-centric, person-centric. There are so many institutions in the country which are in the government. They have not appointed people out there.
I agree with. That I agree.
Universities, there are thousands and thousands of posts.
Abhinav, someone was telling
it.
A professor, Indian professor.
And yet, and yet they are being blamed for saffronization, which they are not doing at all.
I mean, at least do what you're being blamed for.
There's a professor based in the UK, Indian professor, and he was telling me that so many of the chairs are empty, which can have professors in them. They're just empty. And the Pakistanis are doing this really well, because they also have their, I don't know what their chairs are called. It's named after one of their, maybe Jinnah or someone, but they have these chairs in the foreign universities, and they're really doing very well with that. And in fact, they were doing very well with international diplomacy also at this present time, which Abhijit, I think, would have a better handle on, because I just pick up things
They're doing good in propaganda, not as such in diplomacy, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Conversation, or more than fun, I think it's been very insightful. It's my endeavor with these chats to really bring forth certain ideas and opinions which are drowned out in our TV debate formats, which are so loud and all those things that we know they are. So anything else that you'd like to add to this conversation?
I've said it all.
You said it all. I just hope.
To quote Marx, last words are meant for people who haven't said enough during their lifetime.
But I hope you all will come back, because I would love to do a conversation with you all on this woke culture, and how it's actually turning out to be very oppressive. In my time it was PC. Everything was PC, politically correct. You wanted to be politically correct. You didn't want to hurt feelings. But now it's, I think, just become a little nuts. So it would be great to talk about wokeism as well. But thank you.
That would be fun.
Thank you so much for coming on Kaleidoscope. And to my viewers, we will be back so shortly, and we're going to close this out now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.